My name is Walter Grayson. I'm 68 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, in a house on Desert Willow Lane that I bought with my own two hands and 30 years of honest work. Or at least I did, until the day my own daughter sold it out from under me while I was on the only vacation I'd taken in a decade. She sold my home to pay off her husband's gambling debts, and when I came back and stood on my own driveway with a broken key in my hand, she laughed and called me a homeless person. What she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the house they sold held a secret worth far more than its walls. And I had spent 40 years of my life learning exactly how to make people like them regret underestimating an old man. Before we go any further, if stories of betrayal and justice speak to you, take a second to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from tonight. Now, let me take you back to the morning everything fell apart. The key snapped in the lock. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the jagged stub of brass in my palm, my suitcases still sitting on the driveway behind me, smelling faintly of Alaskan sea spray. The June sun pressed down on the back of my neck like a hot iron. I tried the remaining half of the key. Nothing. The garage opener blinked red instead of green. Even the doorbell camera, the one Rachel had insisted I install the year before, "For your safety, Dad," stared at me like I was a stranger. Then the door opened, and a stranger stared at me too. "Can I help you?" He was maybe 50, broad-shouldered, wearing a Cardinals t-shirt I had never seen in my life. Behind him I could see my foyer, except the walls were sage green now, not the warm cream my wife Eleanor had chosen 15 years ago. The floor was the same. The light through the transom window was the same. Everything else had been quietly, efficiently erased. "This is my house," I said. The words came out strangled, like someone had a hand around my throat. I actually stepped back and checked the number bolted to the stucco. 2847. Right number. Right street. Right life, or what used to be. "I'm Walter Grayson, I live here." The man's face shifted from suspicion to something worse. Pity. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake. We bought this house 3 weeks ago. I'm Marcus Coleman." My knees buckled. I had to grab the my door frame, just to stay upright. 3 weeks ago, I had been standing on the deck of a small boat in Prince William Sound, watching orcas breach in silver water, thinking how lucky I was. 3 weeks ago, I had finally taken the Alaska fishing trip I'd been promising myself since retirement. And in those same 3 weeks, my entire life had been sold to a man in a Cardinals t-shirt. "That's impossible," I heard myself say. "I've owned this house since 2010. Marcus Coleman pulled out his phone. "Denise," he called over his shoulder. "Maybe you should call the police." "No, wait." My fingers fumbled for my own phone, suddenly clumsy as a child's. "There's been a mistake. My daughter, Rachel. She was supposed to be watching the place." I hit Rachel's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Behind Marcus, his wife Denise appeared, already speaking quietly into her phone, giving someone my address. "My address. Dad?" Rachel's voice was strange. "Tight. Are you back?" "There are strangers in our house," I said, the words tumbling out desperate and raw. "Rachel, what's happening? Why are there people in the house?" Silence. Then a sigh, that particular sigh she had perfected as a teenager, the one that meant I was being difficult. "Dad, stop being dramatic. I sold it." The world tilted. I sat down hard on my own front step, or what used to be my front step. Marcus Coleman took a worried step back, probably afraid I was having a heart attack. For a moment I thought I might be. "You what?" "I sold the house. Trevor needed the money for his debts. We had that power of attorney, remember? From your gallbladder surgery?" "Trevor, my son-in-law." I could hear him in the background, and I swear to you he was laughing. Laughing, while my daughter explained how she had sold my home out from under me. "Rachel, you can't just sell someone's house. That is not what power of attorney means." "That's not. It's done, Dad. Check into a hotel. We'll talk later." And she hung up. My daughter hung up on me while I sat on a stranger's front step, with the broken half of my own key still clutched in my hand. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers, both young enough to be my grandchildren, both professional, even kind. But the paperwork Marcus Coleman showed them was airtight. Sale completed 3 weeks ago. New deed filed with the Maricopa County Recorder. Everything legal and proper, on paper. "Sir," the younger officer said gently, her hand light on my elbow, "if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to escort you." I stood up slowly, and that's when something strange happened. 40 years of legal training switched on like a generator in a blackout, and I found myself cataloging everything with cold precision. The date on the sale documents, the signature that looked like mine but could not be mine, the notary seal. Rachel had been thorough, but thorough is not the same as perfect. You see, before I retired, I spent 4 decades as a corporate attorney. I built my career on a single truth: documents tell stories. And forged documents tell the most interesting stories of all. As the officers gave me a courtesy ride to a hotel, I looked back at my house through the rear window. New desert landscaping where my lawn used to be, a different mailbox, small changes that added up to erasure. 15 years of my life gone in 3 weeks. My phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. Booked you a room at the Camelback Grand Resort. We'll talk tomorrow. She had planned this, every detail. While I was in Alaska watching the northern lights and feeling grateful for my family, my daughter had been stealing everything I owned. You okay back there, sir? The older officer asked. Actually, I said, and my voice surprised me with its steadiness. I'm going to need a lawyer. He nodded, probably assuming I meant some small civil dispute. He didn't understand yet. Neither did Rachel. The Camelback Grand rose out of the desert like a monument to money. Pink stucco, palm trees, marble lobby. The kind of place Rachel would choose to make a point. See, Dad, I'm not a monster. I put you somewhere nice. The concierge told me my daughter had called ahead. She said you might be tired from your travels. Tired. I wondered what else Rachel had told them, that I was confused, forgetful. The rage building in my chest since the key snapped threatened to spill over. But 40 years of depositions had taught me the value of a neutral face. How long will you be staying with us? The clerk asked, sliding key cards across the marble. That depends, I said, on how long it takes to reclaim what's mine. Up in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and breathed for 1 full minute. Then I opened my laptop. Thank God for cloud storage. Thank God for my old paranoid habit of scanning every document I've ever signed. It was all there. The Grayson Family Trust, established 2010. The deed to the house, clearly stating that any sale required the signatures of all 3 trustees. Me, Rachel, and my son Nathan in Seattle, who I would have bet my last dollar had no idea what his sister had done. And there was the power of attorney Rachel had mentioned. A limited medical power of attorney, created for my gallbladder surgery 2 years earlier. It had expired 6 months after the procedure. She knew that. Of course she knew that. My phone rang. Nathan, Dad, Rachel just called me. She said you're having some kind of episode? Your sister sold my house while I was in Alaska. Silence, then she did what? She forged my signature, Nathan. And yours too, I'm betting, since the trust required all 3 of us. Jesus, Dad, I'll fly down. Not yet. I need to handle this correctly. I pulled up the sale paperwork on my screen and studied the signatures. Mine was close, but the capital G was wrong. The pressure was wrong. Forgeries always have tells, and I had spent a career learning to see them. Send me a notarized statement today confirming you never signed any sale documents. Can you do that? Already walking to my car. Dad, why would she do this? I thought about Trevor's laughter in the background of that phone call. Gambling debts. Your brother-in-law always did believe he was smarter than the house. After Nathan hung up, I sat in that expensive hotel room in yesterday's travel clothes, and I made a decision. I could call the police right then and report the forgery. Simple theft, maybe a little jail time, a plea deal, a slap on the wrist. No, Rachel had stolen more than a house. She had stolen my trust, my security, my faith in the meaning of family. I wanted her to understand, fully, completely, in a court of law, exactly what she had done. The next morning, I drove a rental car to Rachel's house in Paradise Valley. Of course she lived in Paradise Valley, in a house twice the size of the one she'd stolen from me. Trevor answered the door at 10 in the morning in a bathrobe, coffee in hand, and he didn't look surprised to see me. Walter, he said. He'd stopped pretending to call me Dad a long time ago. Rachel's in the kitchen. The house smelled like new money, candles that cost more than groceries, fresh flowers in every room. Rachel sat at a marble island, big enough to seat 12, her expression already set in the defensive mask I remembered from her teenage years. Dad, before you say anything, 420,000, I said, sitting down across from her. That's the number, isn't it? That's what Trevor owes. Trevor's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. How did you? I've been awake since 4 a.m. Making calls. It's amazing what people will tell a retired corporate lawyer who uses the words federal investigation and fraud in the same sentence. Your husband's bookmaker was particularly chatty. Trevor set his mug down too hard, coffee sloshing over the marble. You don't know who you're dealing with, old man? No, I said quietly. You don't. Sit down, Trevor. He sat. 40 years of commanding boardrooms has uses far beyond corporate law. Rachel rallied, the way she always did. You're 68, Dad. You don't need that big house. Consider it retirement planning. We've even set aside money for a nice assisted living place. The same kind of place you put your mother in before she died. That landed. Rachel flinched. She had put my Eleanor in the cheapest facility she could find and visited once a month, if that. While I spent every single day there, watching the love of my life fade away in a room that smelled of industrial disinfectant and despair. You're right about one thing, I said, standing. I am retiring. Rachel's face relaxed slightly. From being your safety net. I walked to the door, then turned back. They were both frozen at the counter, Rachel's mouth open, Trevor's face flushed red. You committed forgery, fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. And those are just the state charges. The federal ones will be far more interesting. I took out my phone and photographed the two of them sitting there in their marble kitchen. Charles Bradford sends his regards, by the way. You remember Charles? Former federal prosecutor. He finds your case fascinating. Outside, I stood on their manicured lawn and really looked at that house. 6 bedrooms for 2 people. A 3-car garage holding a Tesla, a Range Rover, and a Porsche. A pool sparkling unused in the backyard. All of it built on sand, waiting for the tide. I had been Rachel's father for 39 years. I had protected her even when she didn't deserve it. But standing in that morning sun, something inside me shifted and quietly died. The part that made excuses for her. The part that still called her my little girl. Rachel had made her choice, now I would make mine. I texted Bradford 3 words, gather the team. Charles Bradford's office building stood downtown like a monument of glass and steel. A monument to justice, or at least to billable hours. The elevator to the 14th floor took forever. Its brass doors reflecting a version of me I barely recognized. 3 days of hotel living had sharpened something in my face. The soft grandfather was gone. What stared back looked like the prosecutor I had been 40 years ago, before corporate law sanded down my edges. Bradford had turned his conference room into a war room. Papers covered the mahogany table in color-coded rows. Laptops hummed. A whiteboard timeline laid out Rachel's deception for what it was. Not a family misunderstanding, but a crime. Robert used to say you were the most dangerous man in any deposition, Bradford said, shaking my hand. All 6'4" of him, silver hair still perfect at 70. Ready to prove him right? The forensic document examiner arrived at 9:30 sharp, Dr. Elena Vasquez carried equipment better suited to a crime lab than a law office. She spread the forged sale documents across the table and positioned a magnifying apparatus over my supposed signature. Look here, she said. The pressure patterns are wrong. Your authentic signature shows a consistent right slant with heavy downstrokes. This one was written by someone naturally left-handed, compensating with their right hand. Rachel was left-handed. Had been since childhood, ever since she broke her right arm falling off her bike when she was 9. I remembered carrying her to the emergency room myself. And the ink is even more damning, Vasquez continued. This document claims to be signed in February. The ink chemistry says it's less than 4 weeks old. Bradford looked up from his legal pad. This is textbook fraud, Walter. Prosecutable, winnable. The timeline on the whiteboard told the story better than any closing argument ever could. February 20th, the date Rachel claimed I signed the sale documents. February 20th, her own Instagram showed her at a Las Vegas casino pool, champagne glass raised to the camera. Meanwhile, I had been in Phoenix that entire week. Medical appointments every day, all documented. There's more, Bradford said, opening another file. The notary who authenticated the documents, Linda Park, guess who she works with? Vanessa Cole, the real estate agent who handled the sale. Rachel's college roommate. The pieces clicked together like a round being chambered. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't desperation. This was conspiracy, planned, coordinated, executed while I watched whales in Alaska. I want this airtight, I said. No escape routes, no technicalities. When we file, I want it complete. We filed 3 ways. Civil suit to void the fraudulent sale, criminal referral to the county attorney, and a formal complaint to the state regulatory board covering the notary and the real estate license. The court froze their accounts pending investigation. The bank accounts, the property, even the cars. The process server was a young woman named Ashley, efficient and body camera equipped. Workplace or home? She asked. Workplace, I said. Lunch hour, maximum witnesses. Rachel had worked at Desert Ridge Financial Group for 15 years, where her colleagues believed she was a devoted daughter caring for her aging father. From across the street, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, we watched Ashley walk into a glass-walled conference room in the middle of Rachel's client presentation. We watched Rachel's face travel from annoyance to confusion to naked shock as the envelope was extended. Her clients, 3 men in expensive suits, watched her world crack in real time. My phone rang before Ashley reached her car. Dad, what have you done? My cards aren't working. The bank says the accounts are frozen. In the background, Trevor's voice roared. Something made of glass shattered. You committed fraud, Rachel. You stole my house. What did you expect? Dad, you don't understand. Trevor owes people, dangerous people. If we can't pay them, that sounds like a you problem, I said and hung up. Then I called Victor Salazar, a private investigator I had used for 20 years in my corporate days. I need everything on Trevor Whitfield. Focus on the gambling debts and who holds them. 3 days later, I learned what desperation looks like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Trevor had somehow gotten into the hotel's hallway, drunk, pounding the walls. I triggered the recording app on my phone before I opened the door. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days, bloodshot eyes, 3-day stubble, whiskey coming off him in waves. You're killing us, old man, he slurred, pushing past me into the room. Trevor, you're drunk. Leave before I call security. Security? His laugh was ugly. You know what happens to people who owe the kind of men I owe? Accidents, Walter. Accidents happen, especially to old men. Weak hearts, bad falls, sometimes people just disappear. Even from nice hotels. Is that a threat, Trevor? It's a promise. Drop the charges. Unfreeze the accounts. Or you'll wish Rachel had put you in the same trash home as your wife. The rage that hit me was volcanic. But I stood absolutely still, because the recording was everything. Get out. He left, kicking over a lamp on his way. Hotel security arrived minutes later. I had texted them the moment the pounding started. Cameras reviewed, statements taken, police called. Trevor was gone, but every word of it was documented, time-stamped, admissible. Salazar met me the next day at an overlook in the McDowell Mountains and handed me a folder thick with photographs. Your son-in-law is in deep. He owes a private collection outfit run out of Vegas, the kind of construction company that doesn't build anything. Total debt is closer to $500,000 than $400,000. How long has this been going on? Years. But here's the part you'll want to sit down for. He pulled out another photo. Rachel's name is on loan documents for private games she never attended. 3 separate witnesses confirm she's never met these people. Trevor has been forging her signature too. The irony was almost beautiful. The forger forged. In early April came unexpected allies. Marcus Coleman called, his voice tight with controlled anger. Mr. Grayson, we need to talk. Our title insurance company is investigating, but they're dragging their feet. My wife is devastated. We saved 20 years for this house. I understand, Mr. Coleman. You're victims too. The thing is, we've learned something. Our real estate agent, Vanessa Cole. She and your daughter go way back. College roommates. She pushed us to close fast, said there were other offers. Now we know why. His wife Denise took the phone. Mr. Grayson will testify. We just want our money back, and these people held accountable. Their attorney, Monica Reyes, was young, hungry, and brilliant. Within 2 weeks she had found a pattern. 3 other properties tied to Vanessa Cole with questionable sale histories. All elderly owners, all quick cash closings below market value. This wasn't their first time. It was just the first time they had picked the wrong old man. Court-ordered mediation came on April 10th, before a retired judge named Arthur Whitmore, who had seen everything and tolerated nothing. Rachel arrived in a designer suit that screamed either denial or defiance. Her lawyer, Gregory Combs, opened with the only card he had. My client was manipulated by her husband. She is a victim of domestic coercion. And that's when Trevor exploded. Coercion. She planned the whole thing. She showed me the trust documents. She told me exactly how to. Combs grabbed his arm, but it was too late. Trevor was on his feet, screaming at Rachel across the table. You told me he was dying. You said he'd never even find out. You said the Alaska trip was perfect timing. Security dragged him out, still shouting. And in the silence he left behind, Rachel's mask finally slipped all the way off. She looked at me with eyes I had never seen in my daughter's face. Cold. Calculating. Empty. "You were supposed to have an accident on that trip," she said quietly. "The charter captain was paid. But you switched tour companies at the last minute. You were lucky, Dad." The room went silent. Even Judge Whitmore looked stunned. Combs was frantically whispering at her to stop talking, but the words were already out, already on the record, already changing everything. My daughter had not merely stolen my house. She had planned for me never to come home at all. I don't remember walking to the parking garage. I remember sitting in the rental car with my hands on the wheel, not driving, while two texts arrived. Bradford. Rachel just withdrew $50,000 in cash from an account we missed. Salazar. Trevor just met with the collectors again. It did not look friendly. They weren't going to fight anymore. They were going to run. 4 days after the mediation, Rachel emailed me with syrup-sweet concern. "Dad, you left some things in the garage. Come get them before we donate them." I hired Tom Reyes, an off-duty Phoenix officer, to shadow me discreetly, and I drove to Paradise Valley one last time. Rachel opened the door in tennis whites, though she hadn't played since high school. A costume. "Oh good, you're here." Her voice carried across the entire neighborhood, deliberately loud. "Everyone, my father's here for his things." Mrs. Patterson was watering her roses. Mr. Warren walked his ancient beagle. Rachel had assembled an audience. Trevor emerged shirtless, despite the morning chill, beer in hand at 10 a.m. The garage smelled like motor oil and broken promises. My tools lay scattered across the concrete, some obviously, deliberately damaged. My father's hammer, the one he carried through the Second World War, had fresh dents in the handle. Rachel watched me catalog each piece of destruction with a smile sharp as broken glass. "Look, everyone. My father, the charity case," she projected, "community theater loud. Can't even afford storage." Trevor accidentally kicked over my toolbox, wrenches clattering across concrete. "Oops, clumsy me." I photographed everything silently. "Maybe the shelter has room for you, Dad. They take homeless seniors, right?" Rachel laughed. "Here's $20, Trevor slurred, tossing a crumpled bill at my feet. "Buy yourself lunch, old man." Mrs. Patterson had stopped watering. Her face shifted from confusion to horror as Rachel picked up my military medals, my Bronze Star, my Purple Heart, and tossed them onto the lawn like trash. "Who even keeps this junk?" Then the photo album hit the driveway, and Trevor's foot came down on it. Pictures of Rachel's first birthday scattered across the concrete. Eleanor's smile, frozen in time, lay beneath his heel. "This is shameful," Mrs. Patterson said, walking over. "Mind your own business, Helen," Rachel snapped, and for a second the raw ugliness underneath showed through for the whole street to see. Here is what my daughter never understood. Every neighbor on that street had a phone, and every single one of them was recording. She had invited witnesses to her cruel little performance, never realizing she was casting jury members. "Thank you for witnessing this, Helen," I said quietly, loading my broken possessions into the car. "Why were you smiling?" Rachel texted me minutes after I drove away. She would find out soon enough. "Because money leaves footprints, and Trevor had been tap dancing in wet cement for years." That week, using everything Salazar had gathered, and everything my 40 years had taught me, I compiled a clinical, precise, meticulously documented report and delivered it to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. The maze of shell companies, the structured cash deposits designed to dodge bank reporting, the $650,000 from my house sale that had taken very interesting detours before reaching its supposed destination. Within days, the machine was moving. Salazar called me, half laughing. Collectors showed up at Trevor's office. In front of his partners, 47 minutes. He came out with his shirt untucked, drove straight to the bank, and came out empty. Everything's frozen. Then Rachel called, hysterical, drawers slamming in the background. "The offshore account is empty. 300,000, gone." And Trevor's voice, distant but clear. "It's not what you think." The sound of a slap. The phone clattering. Her voice rising into a shriek. "You stole from me while I was stealing for you?" The line went dead. I sat in my hotel room listening to the silence, feeling nothing but a cold, quiet clarity. The criminals were devouring each other. All I had to do was let them. The trial came in June, with media vans circling the courthouse like carrion birds. "Daughter steals father's home," ran across the local news ticker. Rachel arrived in a borrowed suit that didn't fit. Her designer wardrobe had been seized. Trevor didn't arrive at all. A bench warrant was issued on the spot. IRS agent Marcus Hale had been busy, so had prosecutor Patrick Doyle, and Charles Bradford had saved his revelation for maximum impact. Your Honor, Bradford said, rising slowly, the defense has operated under a fundamental misunderstanding. May I present the original Grayson Family Trust, established 1995. The projector lit up with documents I had kept sealed for 20 years. Rachel leaned forward, squinting. The Grayson Family Trust is not merely the house on Desert Willow Lane, Bradford continued. It encompasses 14 properties, investment accounts, bonds, and commercial real estate. Current valuation, approximately $3.2 million. I watched my daughter's face move through disbelief, rage, and finally something like death. Judge Raymond Sterling's voice could have frozen the desert. Ms. Whitfield, you attempted to steal a single asset from a trust worth millions. I didn't. He never. Her voice cracked into pieces. I stood surprising everyone, including Bradford. Your Honor, may I address my daughter? Sterling nodded. The trust was your protection, Rachel. Your mother and I built it when you were 16, after we watched her parents lose everything to a con man. Every safeguard, every layer of complexity, all of it was to make sure you and Nathan would be secure. If you had waited 15 months until your 40th birthday, your share would have come to you freely. If you had simply asked, I would have helped with Trevor's debts myself. But you never knew, because your mother made me promise. She saw what Trevor was before anyone else did. She said if you ever knew about the money, he would find a way to take it. I paused, looking at my daughter across that courtroom. She was right. Prosecutor Doyle rose. The state charges Rachel Whitfield with elder abuse, forgery, fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder for hire. That last charge landed like a thunderclap. Agent Hale had traced the payment to the Alaska charter captain. My daughter's plan for me had never been a hotel room. It had been the bottom of Prince William Sound. Given the attempted flight with $50,000 in cash, Judge Sterling ruled, the defendant is remanded immediately. As the bailiff approached with handcuffs, Rachel looked exactly like the 5-year-old who once stole cookies and blamed the dog. Caught, cornered, unable to comprehend consequences. But I'm your daughter, she said, as the metal clicked around her wrists. That's why this hurts, I replied. Trevor was found 2 days later, hiding in a Laughlin motel, and he immediately started talking, trading information for reduced federal charges. It didn't save him from the tax case. In federal court that July, I watched him stand in an orange jumpsuit, while Agent Hale testified with the dispassion of a man reading a grocery list. Unreported gambling winnings, structured deposits, money laundered through 14 shell companies, with names like Desert Holdings LLC. The federal judge gave him 30 months, with the state fraud sentence to follow. His expensive lawyer was already packing up, retainer exhausted. Rachel's reckoning came later that month. The murder-for-hire conspiracy charge alone guaranteed there would be no probation, no gentle deal. Her attorney negotiated a plea across all charges, 7 years in state prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release, full restitution of $1.2 million to me, the Colemans, and the title insurer. I accept responsibility, Rachel said at sentencing, her voice cracking like dried leather. I betrayed the person who loved me most. Judge Sterling's gavel fell with finality. They led her past the cameras, past the microphones, past the life she had built on lies. The Colemans were made whole. $725,000 from the title insurance company, full compensation plus damages, with the insurer recovering every cent from Rachel and Trevor through subrogation for decades to come. Marcus Coleman shook my hand with both of his. Thank you, Mr. Grayson, for fighting, for not letting them win. The fraudulent sale was voided. The Colemans used their settlement to buy a smaller place in Sedona, and they told me later they'd found peace there. On August 1st, I turned a brand new key in the lock of my own front door. The Colemans had left the house better than they found it. New kitchen backsplash, a desert garden that would survive any drought, fresh paint throughout. They had loved it properly, briefly. There was a note on the counter. Thank you for fighting for what's right. This house has good bones and better karma now. Mrs. Patterson appeared within the hour, carrying a casserole that smelled like the 1970s in the best possible way. Mr. Warren followed with his ancient beagle. The whole neighborhood had been watching. Waiting. Welcome home, Mrs. Patterson said simply, Home felt different now, not violated, transformed. Every room held memory and renewal at once. 2 years have passed since then. Trevor is still in federal custody, with the state sentence waiting for him like a second winter. And Rachel writes to me from prison. The first letter came on cheap paper in her careful handwriting. Trevor started working on me during Mom's final months, she wrote. He'd gone through your papers while you were at the hospital every day. He told me you'd spend everything on her care and leave us nothing. I know now that was a lie. But grief and greed twisted everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just understanding. Your daughter, Rachel. I read it 3 times, then I filed it with the legal papers. Not ready for forgiveness, but acknowledging the attempt. Her letters keep coming, 1 a month. She earned her paralegal certificate inside, of all things. She tutors other inmates. Her restitution comes out of her prison wages. $12 here, 20 there, pennies against a mountain, but she sends them. In her last letter she wrote, Mom would be ashamed of what I became. I wrote back a single line, but may be proud of who you're becoming. When she gets out, we'll see. The door isn't open, but it isn't welded shut either. I told her, call me when you've made a full year of payments to the Colemans. We'll talk then. Accountability first, everything else after. Now, before I let you go, sit with me on this porch for just a few more minutes, because if this story was only about lawyers and courtrooms, it wouldn't be worth your time. There are things I learned in that terrible year that I wish someone had told me at 40, and I'm going to give them to you for free. The first is this: love without boundaries is not love, it is an open vault. I spent 39 years mistaking indulgence for devotion. Every time I excused Rachel's small cruelties, every time I smoothed the road her choices should have made rough, I wasn't protecting my daughter. I was training her to believe consequences were for other people. The kindest thing a parent can give a child is not comfort. It is character. And character is only forged where actions are allowed to meet their consequences. The second, protect yourself legally no matter how much you trust your family, especially because you trust your family. Most elder financial abuse is not committed by strangers. It is committed by the people who have keys to our homes and access to our hearts. A power of attorney should always be limited, dated, and reviewed. A trust should have independent oversight. These are not acts of suspicion. They are acts of love, because good structure removes temptation before it can bloom into tragedy. If you are past 60 and you have not sat down with an estate attorney, let my story be the push you needed. The third lesson is harder. Choose justice over revenge. Believe me, there were nights in that hotel room when I dreamed of vengeance. Cruel, personal, satisfying vengeance. But rage is expensive, and justice has better returns. Revenge would have made me smaller, made me them. Justice made the system work, protected the next elderly victim on Vanessa Cole's list, and left my hands clean and my conscience quiet. When they go low, do not go lower. Go to the law, go to the record, go to the truth, and let the truth do the heavy lifting. And the last thing, the one I turn over every evening watching the desert sunset from my reclaimed porch. Family is not blood, and it is not property. Family is choosing to do right when doing wrong would be easier. My neighbors who recorded the truth when it mattered, that was family. The Colemans, strangers who became allies, that was family. And a daughter in a prison classroom, slowly, painfully learning to become someone her mother could be proud of, that perhaps may be family again someday. Not because I owe it to her, because people are not the worst thing they have ever done, and redemption, when it is earned rather than demanded, is the most beautiful thing a human being can build. My name is Walter Grayson. I got my house back. But what I really got back was something Rachel tried hardest to take. The certainty that an old man who stands calmly on the truth is the most dangerous person in any room. If this story moved you, do an old lawyer a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Would you have left the door open for Rachel, or closed it forever? I read every comment, and your stories often become the seeds of the next ones I tell. To hear the next story, just click the video on your screen. Thank you for listening, and remember, guard your kindness with wisdom. This story was researched, written, and edited by our human writing team, drawing on real patterns of elder financial abuse cases in the United States. Names, characters, and events have been fictionalized for privacy and storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons is coincidental. Thank you for supporting human storytelling.